someone asked me to share the healing practices that I used on my spiritual journey. So I'm going to share some of those with you. But before I get into the list, I just want to point out that the spiritual journey is very much a healing journey, that we are healing ourselves along the way. So what are some of those practices that I used? Well, before, I just want to point out that at the time, I didn't really see them as healing practices. I was always into self-development and personal growth and really health and well-being. That was really how I was wired, you could say. Always had this this inner knowing that I really just wanted to be well. And I saw it as like a performance thing. Just a performance, not for a specific sport or activity, but just in a performance of the quality of life, how well this body and mind was performing. I really saw the body and mind as a tool to be used. And the better this tool functioned, the better the quality of life. So everything was very much for a health and well-being instead of through the lens of, okay, something's broken, I got to fix it, or something needs to be healed. So I didn't really see these things as healing practices at the time. So I did write some down because I knew that I couldn't just list them in order. So this is the rare video that I actually have a list. So in no particular order, switching to a vegetarian and then a vegan diet was very much a healing practice, you could say, for myself. That I noticed that there was a lot of inner healing when that switch was made. It was like night and day. And I tried a bunch of different diets before. Actually, I was on a carnivore diet probably right before flipping to probably going to a fruitarian diet, which was two ends of the spectrum. And so I've tried them all. I've tried, you name a diet, I've probably tried it. So I always saw it as trying these things as kind of like tweaking the system to try and get how is the system responding towards paleo or going all meat or going low carb or going all fats or mixing up the ratio, high fat, low carb or low carb or high, whatever the opposite is. But I was basically just tweaking the ratios of processed food to whole foods. And basically it just kind of led me more and more towards a diet that was very high in fruits and vegetables, high in water content, high in living food, and low in processed foods, low in how toxic the food was, right? So led me to more of a plant-based vegetarian vegan diet. And that's what I mean, is there's a significant improvement in the well-being, the quality, just how the energy was feeling, how the entire system was feeling, mind, body together, as well as with the emotions as well, just how clean it was running. Really felt like it was switching from some low-grade gas to a premium fuel. So that was one of the things that I did tinker around with, was diet. And the vegetarian, once I cut out the meat, that was probably 12 years ago, probably even closer to 14 years ago now. That like there was kind of no going back. It was such a radical change in terms of just how light, how much vitality, how clean feeling, how good feeling I was, how just this aliveness, how clean and stable the mind was, just by making that switch. What's another thing? Stretching. So a lot of these practices, probably should have named this at the start. A lot of these practices, someone would kind of hear some of these practices and say, well, so you mean you're a yogi, you're practicing yoga? Yes and no. No, in the sense that like just practicing some of the yogic practices doesn't make you a yogi. And a lot of people hear yoga and they just think it's purely physical, right? Yoga, just the stretches. That's all they think. But yoga is really union. And a yogi is one who has united him or herself with God or the universe or life. That you and life are now one. You and God are now one. You and the universe are now one. That's what a true yogi is. Just because you're practicing some stretching doesn't really make you a yogi. People like labels, so any label that you can, slap on your chest is going to make you, feel good. You're building up this false identity, but that's not really what a yogi is. So, yes, a lot of these practices are really yoga, but at the time, I wouldn't say that I was practicing yoga. Even to this day, I don't. I only know like 1 to probably 3 yoga postures, asanas, the names of it. And it was only actually in hindsight that after seeing some of the practices that I was doing, it'd be like, yeah, full on practicing. I had a full on yoga practice. That yoga was just the way of life, you could say. So, because that's what the diet was. The diet would be considered more of like in yogic kind of world or realm, more of a sattvic diet, right? And you can look that up, and we'll go into explain what that is here. So I just thought at the time it was just stretching, right? It was just stretching. I didn't look at any yoga courses or classes. It wasn't like I was having my computer and then following the different poses and stuff. It's very intuitive, that the body was very in tune with how is it feeling. There's a very high level of body awareness, the posture, the range of motion, the restriction of motion, the limitation, the joint, the fluidity of the movement, the center of balance, all these different things, very high awareness of. So I could be aware of a lot of things in the body going on. Now, that being said, the body felt to be very restricted and limited. That's where a lot of the I guess the passion and devotion to just stretching was, that it was always about wanting more mobility, wanting more freedom in the body, wanting the body to move to its best ability, to increase the capacity of movement for this tool, right? To improve the quality of life. And I didn't want to be restricted or limited by the body. So even though the body's a limitation, let's put it out there. So stretching. So basically daily stretching, a daily movement practice. I just saw it as movement. Sometimes even someone would ask, what are you doing? I don't know, I'm just moving. And it was just always very natural. Like it never felt forced. It would kind of weird people out too, because I would just be kind of stretching in front of them, or, leaning to the side and doing different things, and whatever it was, it would just happen because it was very spontaneous. It was kind of like if there's some energy that just wanted to kind of get kind of liberated or loosened or moved from a certain area, it would just happen. It didn't matter if we were having a conversation. I would just basically start stretching right in front of you, wherever it was, at work or outside. It didn't matter. So stretching, and this was very much a daily thing. Like this was a daily practice. It would be rare if there was a day that I didn't stretch, that I didn't do some sort of movement that day. It would just feel very off. And while stretching, very present to the feelings in the body, all of the sensations of the body. And at the time, I attributed actually the stretching to what I was feeling, this happiness. What was making me peaceful was the stretching. But now I know it was not the stretching that was doing that. But I won't add that in this video either. Breathing, so like a breathwork practice, and this very much came hand in hand with the stretching. The breathing was being done while the stretching, or before the stretching, or after the stretching. It was just a mix. It was very much this practice that was very dynamic. It had some breath work, it had some stretching, it had some meditation, and it was all very natural, where there was no, I got to do this many breaths, I got to do it for this long, I got to hold for this long, this stretch that long, I got to meditate for 10 minutes. None of that. It was very much like just intuitively happening, where it was like, it's like the body just knows what to do, right? It was just doing it. It was very much letting go, full control, not trying to control anything, but just letting the body just do its thing. So breath work, and same thing, probably daily doing some breathing. It would just feel good, right? It was more of like, that was like kind of the compass. If I feel good, I'm doing it, right? Let's throw another one that's kind of related in there. It was, I don't know what to really call it. I think people are calling it like cold therapy. But cold showers every morning, probably been doing that for probably 15 years easily. Was doing it before people like Wim Hof were talking about it, actually, before like Joe Rogan and other people on podcasts started doing it. Now it's amazing that everyone seems to be into it, or at least that's what social media makes it seem like once you start clicking on a few people's their cold plunges and stuff like that. But again, getting out of bed and going straight cold shower. Start off with a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, get out. Not even touching the hot water, right? Just not even touching the hot water. So cold showers, I've done cold baths, I've done cold plunges in the lake, easy laying in the snow, you name it. Anything with the cold, I've probably done it. Cold therapy, fasting from food, done intermittent fasting. That was, again, like a lot of this stuff before people started talking about it. In no way I'm saying that I started it. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, I didn't start that. This has been around for thousands of years, all of this stuff. So I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying it in the sense that it's like I didn't learn about it from anywhere. It just happened. It's like, try the cold shower and it felt good. And then I'm like, cool, let me do that again. And I was like, okay. And then this just became the lifestyle. It basically became a lifestyle. Same with like intermittent fasting. Once it was like feeling pretty good with the lighter food, going from like all the meats to then feeling light, then it was like, okay, what happens when I just start skipping meals? And then that's when it started getting really crazy, because I felt way better not eating. I know that sounds crazy, but having that duration of going 14, 18, 24, 32 hours, like whatever the thing is, basically a full day, right? One meal a day or one meal every day and a half, then that really was next level, because it got me in tune with my energy. And the energy was even cleaner. It was like going from meat to then vegetarian was like low grade to then, let's say, to give you a scale, let's say medium grade. And then from vegetarian to vegan, it was like high grade fuel. And then from high grade now to then, from vegan to then intermittent fasting to having these large windows of no food. Then it was like super grade, premium grade. It was just something happens where the mind becomes so still and tranquil, and the energy, it's like you can feel every little bit of energy in you, and the energy is so light, and the aliveness is just cranked. Your vitality is through the roof. And really, it's like I wasn't even eating because of hunger when the fast was broken. It was like just eating because you'd be kind of like around other people that would be eating, and you're like, all right, I'll break the fast to join you. But there was always something that's like, man, it's like if I were just to go away on the weekend by myself, right? It's like I wouldn't even need food. I'd just go away for 2 days, 3 days, leave on a Friday, come back on the Sunday night or the Monday and just not have anything to pack food, because it was like, I wouldn't need it. And I noticed that like the sleep was significantly decreased when these long fasts were happening. The energy would just get cranked so high. It was so clean and so much energy that then you're kind of like, all right, I'm used to kind of going to bed now at like 11 o'clock or 10:30 or 12, like whatever time you go to bed. And you're like, I'm not even needing to go to bed. So you're like, now what do I do? It's like you can live like another life. So you have so much extra time. You have all this, because you'd be surprised how much time goes into like just even thinking about food, planning, all this stuff to do with food. That then already by eliminating even just 2 meals, you already feel like, wow, I've got so much more time. And then because the energy is through the roof, because you're just not processing that energy, the energy is not getting sucked into digesting the food, processing and digesting the food. You're kind of like, whoa, okay, I've got extra time now. I've got, what do I do with this extra time? And then when it shifts to just running off of just pure energy, it's like there's like a time period that happens where it's like, okay, it's like getting rid of all like food from yesterday. And then it's like you feel the body just switch. It's like switch to just running off of like just pure energy. I don't know how to explain it. It's just something happens. And you know that period of time that you're not eating, you know that like your body, it feels like a deep clean is happening. Like it feels like there's a deep cleanse, there's a detoxification. You can feel it. You feel it. You smell it in your breath. You feel it in your mouth. You can just feel it, and the entire body just kind of, it stops this jitter. There's usually this jitter happening with the food that you're eating, and when you're not processing that, it's like the energy just comes back. It feels very centered and balanced instead of just wanting to pull. Same with the mind. There's this constant like pushing and pulling usually in one's mind, and then it just relaxes, gets you, and you become more sensitive too. It's like the food. I know this sounds like a food video now, but it's like the food. It's like it dulls your senses. It's like it makes you less receptive. It's dull is a good word. It like dulls it. Where then it's like, well, you start feeling. You can feel your energy. You can feel other people's energy. You feel like the energy of plants. Everything is just much more heightened, right? So fasting, and then I would do. I've done a bunch of times too. Like I think people call it like dry fasting, where you wouldn't even drink water too. You go a full day, no food, no water. See what happens. Massage therapy. I think people kind of say that that's more of a healing modality or practice. So some regular massages here and there. Once I got into foam rolling, I didn't really go for massages too much. Meditation, but not a formal meditation. Sit there. Very much just like, again, the meditation was just natural. It's like when I was running, I was meditative. When I was doing yard work, I was meditative. I did a lot of like landscape stuff just for my dad around the house, and just like stuff where you're not talking to anyone, and just like go down to like the end of the driveway and, you know, put all the gravel in a wheelbarrow and go back and forth from the backyard, or do some sort of like manual labor, kind of like where it doesn't take any brains to do it, kind of thing. And you're just kind of out there in the sun working away, not having to talk to anyone. It was like, whoa, like 4 or 5 hours would pass and it'd feel like 5 minutes. And you're like, what happened? where was I? Right. So that was meditative. Walks. It was very much like, just as like a lot of people call it, just like being mindful, right? Being mindful, just feeling how your body's walking, sensing everything. It's just really just really sensing the five senses at all times, just being very aware of everything, like inside and outside, the entire experience. With the breath work, with the movement, then came like energy work. So really just, again, like I said, is I'd be able to like pitch up the energy with the breathing. And I guess some people would call this like a dynamic meditation. Pitch up the energy with the breathing, pitch up the movement, and then just lay down and basically not do anything and just feel that energy and where it's going. And then basically put the awareness on different areas of the body, that breathing the energy into different areas of the body. As the stretch was happening, you can pull that energy, pull that breath into different areas of the body and send that energy into different areas, like channels throughout the nervous system. What else here? Emotional inquiry is big. Takes a lot of awareness. But basically when someone's triggering you, when you're being triggered, then after it's like during, you kind of catch yourself. Oh, this is triggering. What's going on? And then why am I feeling like this? Okay. And then why am I believing that? What's making me feel that? Why do I believe that? What's just going deeper? Is this true? Why am I believing that? Why do I believe that to be true? Why do I feel like that? And then really feeling again with the energy healing is you're more in touch with the energy. You're feeling the energy contract and expand. Now, when you get triggered, it contracts. So why does it feel like I contracted? What made me contract? Now, how can I get wide open again? How can I open up again? How can I get open? What am I guarding? It's usually about a guarding. What are you defending? Right? What position are you holding that you are guarding it, and perhaps attacking someone else's position really guards you? What wound are you guarding? So it very much kind of takes a scenario which most people think is out there. Someone triggered me. And then now you turn it. You turn that awareness back onto, where's the source of that wound? Where is it? Start looking. You start looking at this stuff. So emotional inquiry, that kind of gets into a lot of shadow work as well. A lot of people are talking about shadow work, and that's very much, looking at what's repressed in your psyche, what's hiding in the shadows, what have you rejected and repressed in yourself that's hidden in the subconscious. And that was naturally just coming out again, just in meditation, because as you're meditative, then it's like the mind is still, and it's like you can see in still water. It's like a lake that's become still. It's like, I can see down to the bottom of the lake. So it's like you're seeing down into your mind, into the depths of your psyche to see what's there. Or it's like the mind is kind of still, and then once it's still, then it's like things just kind of surface. They float up to be seen. They float up to the top, and they're seen by the light of awareness. So you're seeing these things. And it's really like that meditation is just, you're not doing anything. Most people, they can't sit still. They can't just be. And that's what's just kind of happening with a lot of the yoga. It was just permission for the body. Just let it move how it wants to. Everything was just flow. The breathing, who cares how many breaths people are saying to do? Or it was just happening. It was just happening. Right? If someone just asked, like, that's kind of the difficult thing. If someone's like, can you teach this to me? I just teach them kind of what I'm doing, but it was very much just, it was almost different all the time, right? It kind of gravitated towards some of the stuff, but it was very much like a free for all, right? But at the same time, as I was freeing as it was very scientific in just how precise things were on the inside, the level of awareness and it felt like you're dissecting something inside, but also at the exact same time, so free flowing and natural. It sounds weird to hear it, but it is what it is. So shadow work. And that's about it. That's really, I mean, there's probably stuff that I didn't write right before the video. I said, okay, let me list it, because I think there's about like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10. So how am I going to remember to make 10? So obviously when I make these videos, I don't even know what I'm going to say. It just comes out. So there's 10 that I use. So whoever was interested in the healing modalities or healing practices or healing techniques, these are 10. They worked for me. Find them very effective. I wish I could give you a little bit more of a how-to on a lot of them, but I don't know. It was as if a lot of this stuff in hindsight, it was like as if I learned them in another lifetime. And just, it's like you enter this lifetime not knowing that you learned them in another lifetime. And it's like things are just happening. It's like there's a previous memory of what was learned before, because even looking at some of the stuff after now, at some of the stuff then after, oh, okay, oh, that's what yoga, oh, that's the practice. And looking at some of the advanced techniques and some of the stuff, I was like, man, I was full on, that's exactly what I do. And I do the exact same thing when I'm breathing. And I'm making the same, shape with my tongue, and I'm putting it right there in my mouth when I'm breathing, and I'm making that noise when I'm breathing. And that's what I'm doing. I'm making that vacuum and that pressurize and that type of hold and that lock, all this stuff with these breathings and these postures and these positions. And it's like, wow, it's like, but I didn't follow any of that stuff. So how is that just happening? How is that happening to that level of precision? Which then I'm like, there's got to be some past lives or something like that, because I don't know how else. There's never one time that I picked up a book or went online looking to do any of this stuff, right? It was like I was practicing, and then someone would, oh, intermittent fasting. And it was like, what's that? And it's like, oh, you just don't eat for 18 hours a day or 14, 18 hours. I'm like, oh, cool. That's funny. I was kind of doing that, in grade 10, and before people started talking about it, or the cold shower stuff, right? Shadow work. I didn't know what any of these things meant at the time. Emotional inquiry. I didn't know what it meant. Shadow work. I didn't know what it meant, right? But it was just kind of, it's like it with just like a higher level of awareness, as the awareness starts to expand, I guess, or as you just become more and more aware, it's like these things just kind of start happening, and you start to really feel like you're learning, that life is teaching you all the time, and you're just basically learning. And with each practice, with each lesson, you feel like you're becoming wiser. And there was always this kind of knowing innerly that it was always about self-mastery. It's the one thing. Talked about this kind of before, about the performance, is to perform my best, to have the body performing its best, to have the mind performing its best for the quality of life, and to have the mastery, because there's always this feeling like being in bondage and not being free and wanting to master oneself. It was always about just kind of making it into a game. Not taking it so seriously, but just making it into a game. And it was just this level of mastery, where as the awareness, just as it was becoming more and more aware, it was just, okay, well, how am I feeling in such and such circumstance? How am I feeling when I'm just doing more selfless services? How am I feeling when I'm interacting with these people who are usually triggering me? I'm seeing how they're getting offended, and then flipping it. How am I doing that? It was always about what am I seeing? And then it was always turning it. How am I doing that? looking for exactly what I'm seeing outward and looking for it in myself, seeing the patterns in others, in society, and then looking for it in myself. And it was almost like, won't rest until I find it. It's like, I know it's there, and being radically honest. And a lot of this stuff just, it helped with the healing. It helped with the healing. Let's add in a few more. Is practice of openness. So I mentioned that before. Forget what the energy, probably like the energy work, or what did I put there? Let's call it energy work. But just feeling when you're open or closed. So the practice of being open really supports, it really starts the healing process. Because if you can't heal when you're closed, you can't heal when you're closed. It's almost like you're wounded and you've closed the wound by putting some Band-Aid on it. And it's like one of these things where my parents used to say, it's like, don't go to sleep with the Band-Aid on. Let the wound breathe. Oh, take the Band-Aid off. Let it open it, right? Let it expose it so that it can heal. Because it's not going to heal. I don't know, who knows? This might be just some, whatever myth or whatever. But hey, at the time it worked, and I'm using it as an analogy now. But it's kind of like that, is if we have a wound, we naturally close to guard the wound. And that's really what vulnerability is about opening up. It's about removing the defenses, the defense system of the mind. Stop guarding ourselves, stop protecting ourselves, take off the armor, remove the shield, put down the sword. This is about being vulnerable. And vulnerability really starts the healing process. It's about opening up. When you open up, well, then you can see what's inside. You have to open up in order to accept things, right? So to accept yourself, to accept life, to accept love, to accept grace, you have to open up. So this practice of openness, find out when you're closed, open. When you feel like you've closed, get open as fast as possible. Find out when you're resisting life, rejecting things, rejecting the present moment, and then start accepting it. Those are two very powerful practices that really aren't mentioned in a lot of the healing, and they're so powerful. A lot of those things trump everything on the list. So I feel meant to mention it, right? But it's again, it comes with that awareness because if you're not even aware that you're closed, then how are you going to open, right? So fundamentally, it's the awareness, right? So, but if you're on a channel like this, then that awareness is already starting to rise. That awareness is already starting to blossom, right? It's sprouting, it's blossoming. It's very much this blossoming of consciousness, this flowering of consciousness that's happening within you. So hopefully that list, there you go, 10 things plus those 2 bonus things can help you on your healing journey. I'll see you in the next one.